When the palace doctor looked at Diana, what he saw horrified him. The woman known as the world's most beautiful was staring at her reflection with pure hatred. That morning, no one knew that Diana was secretly destroying herself from within. It was a cold December morning in 1982. Only Diana's high heels echoed through the marble corridors of Kensington Palace. She was just 21 years old, but she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Diana stood before the large mirror in her bedroom. The sparkle the world saw in her eyes was gone. Only a deep emptiness remained. She placed her hands on her stomach and swallowed hard. That feeling again, that sense of losing control, that shame. "I'm so fat," she whispered to herself. In reality, at 5'10" and 128 pounds, she looked perfect. But what Diana saw was different. What she saw made her sick. Literally sick. Charles had left the palace early that morning. She knew he was meeting Camilla, but she no longer protested. She had no energy left to fight. All she knew was that there was one way to silence her pain. She went to the bathroom, locked the door, and began. This time, it lasted longer. It was more painful. But finally, she felt that relief. She had regained that terrible sense of control. But she didn't yet know what was coming. But what was truly shocking was how long this had been going on. Dr. Michael Lynette was the royal family's personal physician. He had served the palace members for 25 years and had seen almost everything. But when he entered Diana's examination room that day, what he saw surprised him. Diana's hands were trembling, her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But what really caught his attention were the small wounds on Diana's knuckles and the wear on her teeth. "Princess, I've noticed you've lost some weight," the doctor said gently. "How are you feeling?" Diana's eyes filled with tears. Until that moment, no one had noticed, or they had noticed but didn't care. "I'm fine, doctor," she said. But her voice was cracking. Dr. Lynette was experienced. He recognized the symptoms. But it was hard for him to accept, because sitting across from him was the person seen as the world's luckiest woman. So how could it be that, "Princess, is there something troubling you? Something about your eating habits?" he asked carefully. Diana's mask fell at that moment. Tears began flowing uncontrollably. And for the first time, she told someone the truth. How she felt guilty after eating. How she spent hours in the bathroom. How she could no longer control anything. The doctor was shocked. Before him sat a member of the world's most powerful family, but also a young woman battling a deep illness. Bulimia nervosa, a disease still largely unknown and unspoken about at that time. "Does anyone else know about this condition?" the doctor asked. Diana shook her head. "No one notices, or wants to notice." This was exactly when everything changed, because the doctor knew he couldn't keep this secret. Dr. Lynette spent that entire night staring at his medical notes. In his 25 years of serving the royal family, he had never faced such a dilemma. The princess needed immediate medical attention, but protocol demanded he report to the Queen first. He knew that once he made that phone call, Diana's life would never be the same. The next morning, Dr. Lynette requested an urgent meeting with Queen Elizabeth. The Queen received him in her private study at Buckingham Palace, surrounded by centuries of royal portraits. When the doctor explained Diana's condition, the Queen's expression didn't change for a full minute. "Are you absolutely certain, Dr. Lynette?" she finally asked, her voice as steady as always. "Yes, Your Majesty. The symptoms are unmistakable. Princess Diana has been suffering from bulimia nervosa for what appears to be several months, possibly longer. The Queen walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. This information must not leave this room until we determine how to proceed. Contact Prince Charles immediately. Dr. Lynette's hands trembled slightly as he dialed Charles's number. The prince was at Highgrove House, his country estate, when the call came through. Your Royal Highness, I need to speak with you about Princess Diana's health. It's urgent. Charles's voice was irritated. Doctor, I'm quite busy. Can't this wait until my return to London? I'm afraid not, sir. Your wife is suffering from a serious eating disorder called bulimia nervosa. There was complete silence on the other end of the line. For nearly 30 seconds, Dr. Lynette wondered if the connection had been lost. That's impossible, doctor, Charles finally said, his voice sharp. Diana is in perfect health. She's always been careful about her appearance. This must be some sort of misunderstanding. Sir, I've examined her thoroughly. The physical evidence is conclusive. She needs immediate professional help and, most importantly, your support. Charles's tone grew cold. Doctor, my wife is under enormous pressure. She's young. She's trying to adapt to royal life. What you're describing sounds like nothing more than the normal stresses of a woman in her position. I suggest you prescribe some vitamins and recommend she gets more rest. Your Royal Highness, with all due respect, this is a serious medical condition. It requires specialized treatment and therapy. If left untreated, it could have severe consequences for her physical and mental health. The line went quiet again. When Charles spoke, his voice carried the weight of royal authority. Dr. Lynette, I think you're overreacting. Diana will be fine once she adjusts properly to her duties. I'll speak with her about managing her stress better. After hanging up, Dr. Lynette felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen this kind of denial before in families dealing with eating disorders, but never from the future King of England. Meanwhile, Charles sat in his study at Highgrove, staring at the phone. The conversation had disturbed him more than he cared to admit. He had noticed Diana's strange behavior recently, her mood swings, her obsession with her appearance, the way she picked at her food during public dinners. But he had attributed it to the pressures of royal life and their troubled marriage. The thought that his wife might be seriously ill frightened him, but not for the reasons one might expect. Charles wasn't concerned about Diana's well-being as much as he was worried about what this could mean for the monarchy. The royal family had always prided itself on projecting an image of perfection and stability. A mentally ill princess would shatter that image. That evening, Charles returned to Kensington Palace. He found Diana in the nursery, reading bedtime stories to William. For a moment, watching her with their son, she looked like the perfect mother and wife the public believed her to be. But Charles now looked at her with different eyes, searching for signs of the illness the doctor had described. Diana, we need to talk, he said, after William had fallen asleep. They went to the drawing room, where Diana sat nervously on the edge of a chair. She could sense something was wrong from Charles's expression. I spoke with Dr. Lynette today, Charles began, his voice carefully controlled. He seems to think you're suffering from some sort of eating disorder. Diana's face went pale. She had hoped the doctor would keep her confession confidential, at least until she was ready to tell Charles herself. Charles, she started, but he cut her off. Is this true, Diana? Are you deliberately making yourself sick? The way he phrased the question made Diana feel ashamed, as if she were choosing to be ill. It's not something I can control, she said quietly. I've been struggling with this for months. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how." Charles stood up and began pacing the room. "Do you realize what this means, Diana? Do you understand the position this puts me in? The position it puts the entire royal family in?" Diana looked up at him in disbelief. "Charles, I'm asking for your help. I'm sick, and I need support." "What you need," Charles said, turning to face her, "is to pull yourself together. Members of the royal family don't have the luxury of falling apart. We have duties, responsibilities. The people look up to us as examples. But this is a real illness, Charles. Dr. Lynette explained it to me. There are treatments, therapies that can help." Charles's expression hardened. What Dr. Lynette doesn't understand is that sometimes the cure can be worse than the disease. If word of this gets out, it could destroy everything we've worked to build. The press would have a field day. They'd paint you as unstable, unfit to be the future queen. Diana felt tears welling up in her eyes. "So what are you saying? That I should just suffer in silence?" "I'm saying that you need to be stronger. You need to find a way to overcome this without creating a scandal. Think about William. Think about the legacy we're leaving him." That night, Diana lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. Charles had moved to the guest room, claiming he needed space to think. But Diana knew the real reason. He couldn't bear to be near her, now that he saw her as damaged, as weak. She thought about Dr. Linnet's kind words, his assurance that she wasn't alone in this struggle. But now, with Charles's rejection, she felt more isolated than ever. The one person who should have been her greatest support had instead become her harshest critic. The next morning brought an emergency meeting at Buckingham Palace. Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip, Charles, and several senior palace advisors gathered in the Queen's private dining room. Diana was not invited. "Gentlemen," the Queen began, "we have a delicate situation that requires careful handling. As you know, Princess Diana has been diagnosed with a condition that could, if mishandled, create significant problems for the monarchy." Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary and Diana's brother-in-law, spoke first. "Your Majesty, I believe our primary concern should be containment. We need to ensure that this information doesn't reach the press." Prince Philip, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. "What exactly are we dealing with here? Is this a real medical condition, or is it attention-seeking behavior?" Dr. Lynette, who had been called to the meeting, cleared his throat nervously. "Your Royal Highness, bulimia nervosa is a very real and serious condition. It's not something the princess can simply choose to stop." "But it can be treated, can't it?" the Queen asked. "Yes, Your Majesty, but it requires specialized therapy and, crucially, a strong support system. Family support is essential for recovery." Charles shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "What kind of support are we talking about, Doctor?" "The princess needs to feel that she's not fighting this alone. She needs understanding, patience, and access to professional help. Most importantly, she needs to know that her family loves and supports her, regardless of her illness." Prince Philip scoffed. "In my day, people didn't indulge in this sort of self-destructive behavior. They simply got on with their duties." "With respect, Your Royal Highness," Dr. Linnett replied, "eating disorders are not a choice. They're serious mental health conditions that can be fatal if left untreated." The Queen raised her hand to silence the discussion. "The question before us is not whether this condition is real or serious. The question is how we manage it without damaging the institution of the monarchy." Sir Robert pulled out a folder. "I've prepared a preliminary strategy. First, we limit Dr. Linnett's access to the princess. Too much focus on the illness might make it worse. Second, we bring in a nutritionist who can work with the princess publicly, giving the impression of a healthy lifestyle program rather than medical treatment. What about actual treatment? Dr. Lynette asked, alarmed. The princess will receive appropriate care, the Queen said firmly, but it will be handled discreetly by professionals who understand the unique pressures of royal life. Charles nodded approvingly. We also need to ensure that Diana understands the importance of discretion. This cannot become public knowledge under any circumstances. And if she refuses to cooperate? Sir Robert asked. The room fell silent. Finally, the Queen spoke. Then we'll need to consider more serious measures to protect the crown. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because the royal family's real plan regarding this matter was far more shocking than anyone could imagine. Over the next few weeks, the palace's strategy went into full effect. Dr. Lynette found his access to Diana severely restricted. When he requested follow-up appointments, he was told that the princess was too busy with royal engagements. Instead, a team of palace-approved specialists was assembled. Dr. Maurice Lipsage, a psychiatrist known for his discretion with high-profile patients, was brought in. But his instructions were clear. Treat the princess, but ensure that the treatment doesn't interfere with her royal duties or create any publicity. Diana felt like a prisoner in her own life. The woman who was supposed to be helping her, nutritionist Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, seemed more interested in planning Diana's public meals than addressing her private struggles. Every bite Diana took at public functions was now monitored. Every public appearance was analyzed for signs of her condition. The most devastating blow came when Diana discovered that her phone calls were being monitored. She had tried to call a bulimia helpline she'd found in a magazine, only to be told later by Charles that seeking outside help was inappropriate and could lead to security breaches. "You have everything you need here," Charles told her during one of their increasingly rare private conversations. "The Queen has gone to great expense to provide you with the best possible care." "But I'm not getting better," Diana protested. "I'm getting worse. I feel like I'm suffocating." Charles's response was cold and calculated. Sometimes getting better means learning to live with our limitations. You need to accept that your life is different now. You can't have the same freedoms as ordinary people. The isolation was crushing Diana's spirit. She began to feel like her illness was not just a personal struggle, but a political liability. Every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't just see someone who was sick. She saw someone who was failing the monarchy, failing her children, failing everyone who depended on her to be perfect. But the most ruthless decision was yet to come. The palace decided that Diana's contact with her own family would also be limited. Her sister Jane worked for the Queen as a lady-in-waiting and had been instructed not to discuss Diana's condition with their family. Diana felt completely cut off from anyone who might truly understand her struggle. During this process, Diana's loneliness increased exponentially. Because she was forced to hide her illness, she couldn't get real help. She was both sick and helpless. One day, little William, he was only 2 years old then, saw his mother crying. William approached Diana and asked, "Mummy, why are you sad?" Diana's heart broke. She didn't know how to explain to her son what this illness was. "Just a bit tired, sweetheart," she said. But the love she saw in William's innocence gave her hope. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. Because no one had calculated the effect on Diana's children. The effect of Diana's illness on William and Harry was beginning to show over time. Diana would often get up after meals, say, "I'm going to rest a bit," and go to the bathroom. The children had gotten used to this but couldn't understand it. William was a smart child. He sensed something was wrong with his mother. One day he had asked Diana, "Mummy, why do you always look sad?" Diana's heart had broken at that moment. She didn't want to lie to her children, but couldn't tell them the truth either. "Sometimes grown-ups get sad too, sweetheart. It's normal," she had said. But it was far from normal. Diana was now wearing the same clothes for days, forgetting to comb her hair, unable to find energy to play with her children. Her illness was separating her from her motherhood. One afternoon, while Diana was in the bathroom, Harry started crying. While the nanny tried to calm the child, William had also joined in. "Why is Mummy always in the bathroom?" he had asked Nanny Sarah. Sarah didn't know what to answer, because she had been deliberately kept uninformed about Diana's condition. "Mummy is a bit sick, sweetheart," she'd only said. But Diana had heard this. She was listening to her son's voice from behind the door and dying inside. Did her children see her as a sick mother? This thought made her feel even worse. "What you've seen so far is nothing," because the brave decision Diana was about to make would shake the entire world. By 1995, Diana had reached her limit. She had been battling this illness for 13 years and knew she could no longer keep it secret. She especially didn't want her children to be harmed. When the Panorama interview offer with Martin Bashir came, it was Diana's opportunity. She could tell not only the truth about Charles, but also about her own illness. When the royal family learned about this interview, they were in panic. "Diana doesn't know what she's doing," Charles said. "This interview will destroy us all." But Diana was determined. She had one last meeting with Dr. Linnett. "Doctor, if I don't speak about this, do you know that millions of women suffering like me will die in silence?" The doctor knew Diana was right. Talking about bulimia was a social taboo, and Diana's revelation could break this taboo. When the interview day arrived, Diana was very nervous, but also determined. She had told Martin Bashir, "I want to talk about my relationship with Charles, but I also want to speak about a reality that women experience." And when those moments came, Diana told the truth. "I was a bulimia sufferer. I battled this illness for years. And now I know I'm not alone." When these words were heard on television, something in the world began to change. You won't believe the effect Diana's words had on the world was beyond all expectations. Within 24 hours of Diana's revelation, hundreds of women in the UK alone called bulimia helplines. The same thing happened in America, Canada, and Australia. Dr. Susan Ringwood was one of England's leading eating disorder specialists at that time. She could never forget the days following Diana's revelation. The number of patients coming to our clinic tripled overnight. Women were starting to ask for the first time, "Am I sick like Diana too?" Diana's courage had become hope for millions of women, especially for young people. 17-year-old Emma Thompson, not the actress of the same name, was able to tell her mother about her illness for the first time after watching Diana's revelation. "If a princess can have this illness, I can ask for help without shame," she had said. But the real happiness for Diana was the improvement in her relationship with her children. William was now 13 and had understood his mother's revelation. "Mummy, you're so brave," he had said to her, "and now I understand why you were sometimes sad." Harry was still young but could see that his mother was happier. Diana could now spend more time with her children, play with them, truly smile at them. Diana's brave revelation 25 years ago has greatly increased awareness about bulimia and other eating disorders worldwide. Thanks to her, these illnesses have become conditions that are discussed and treated. Today, if you reading these lines are fighting a battle like Diana's, remember her words. You are not alone, and you have nothing to be ashamed of. Diana's illness didn't make her weak. On the contrary, her battle with this illness made her one of the world's strongest women. And today, millions of people are getting help and recovering thanks to her courage. Because sometimes, the greatest victories are born from our greatest vulnerabilities. Diana had proven this, and you can too.